Okay, so today we are going to be talking about paradox. What is a paradox? Why might an author use paradox? And how can we analyze paradox in Macbeth? So you got this handout today in class. Go ahead and take this out because there are a couple things that I want you to write down, and we're going to look at some examples together. So you definitely want to be taking notes on here, especially as I'm talking. So if you look at their definition, a paradox is a statement that sounds self-contradicting but is actually true. So what do I mean by self-contradicting? If a statement is self-contradicting, it seems to not make sense because there are two opposing or opposites ideas within that statement. But when you think about it, it is actually true. So let's look at some common examples. It was the beginning of the end. So where are our self-contradicting ideas in here? Well, we have beginning and end. How can something be both a beginning and an end? It seems as though it's self-contradicting or it doesn't make sense because there are two opposites in there. But when you think about it a little bit further, you realize that even an end has a beginning to it. Again, the second example here, we have deep down, you're really shallow. Well, how can something be both deep and shallow? Shallow inherently means something that is not deep. But what this really means when you think about it is when you really get to know someone, you realize that they have a shallow perspective on the world or whatever it might be. Final one, be cruel to be kind. The self-contradicting idea in there is cruel and kind. How can somebody be both mean and nice? But again, when you think about this a little bit further, you realize that, okay, sometimes it is helpful to be truthful, even though that truth might hurt if in the end it is going to help someone. So that's paradox. It is also sometimes referred to as antithesis or juxtaposed ideas. There you go. Let's look at this little picture here. So in this picture, this is in German, by the way. I don't know why it's in German, but it is. It just means a paradox. So we have a black cat here, and we have a four-leaf clover. As you know, well, I don't know, maybe you don't know, a black cat is supposed to be unlucky, and a four-leaf clover is supposed to be lucky. So I want you to explain in this box over here how this image is a paradox. How is it a self-contradicting idea, and what truth does it reveal? When you think about it, what is it actually trying to say? Go ahead and write your answer right here. Okay, if you need more time, pause the video and write your answer, and then we will review them in class on Monday. Okay, so what's the purpose of a paradox? Why might an author include a paradox? I wrote for you here 3 different reasons why an author might use a paradox. These are obviously not all the reasons why an author uses a paradox, and these reasons don't need to be true every time, but these are just like a menu of options for why an author might use a paradox. The main one is the first one. It can make the audience pause, question a concept, and consider theme. So oftentimes paradox will reveal theme in some way. It may point out a point of conflict for a character for a particular situation. And it can also act as a foil and illuminate characteristics by contrast, sort of like juxtaposition, which is why it's sometimes referred to as juxtaposed ideas. So let's go ahead and look at an example from Act 1, Scene 1 in Macbeth. And this is the very first scene that we read together. And the witches are just kind of talking amongst themselves. And they're saying things like, when are we going to meet again, blah, blah, blah. One of the things they say is, when the battle's lost and won. So here we have a paradox. And I've gone through steps A, B, C, D here to identify the paradox, explain it, and then do a little bit of analysis. I'm going to walk you through my example here, and then you are going to do all the things that I've done up here for number 2. So let's look. When the battle's lost and won. So first I'm thinking, okay, how can a battle be both a win and a loss? So here I have a self-contradicting idea. Then I'm going on to B, where I have thought about, okay, so what is this actually saying? My further explanation is that there's always a losing side and a winning side to each battle. So each battle, in a way, is always lost and won. Then I'm moving on to step C here. And in step C, I'm considering, okay, what is the significance of this paradox? So I found a paradox, I've identified that paradox, I've explained why it's a paradox, but why do I care about it? So this paradox speaks to the conflict that Macbeth as a character experiences throughout the play. He is both lost and won, and that he initially wins both the king's favor and promotions immediately after the battle. Yet he loses his morality, his sense of self, as he succumbs to the ambition that overleaps itself and ruins him in the end. Then for step D, I'm going to go on to more thematic analysis. Through this paradox, Shakespeare rejects the simple notion that, at least for Macbeth, all good favor is inherently virtuous. So even though Macbeth has this win from the king telling him it's great from getting this promotion, it is not just purely a good thing for the character Macbeth. It's more complicated than that, and this paradox begins to speak to that particular theme. So again, just to recap, in step A, I note the opposition. I would write these things down, by the way, if you haven't already. Step A, note the opposition. Step B, explain the truth. Step C, consider the significance. So in A and B, you're finding the paradox, you're explaining why it's a paradox. C, why do I care about it? And then in step D, you begin your thematic analysis or tie it back to theme. I want you to do those 4 steps for this quote that we see in Act 1, Scene 3, lines 68 through 70. This again is the witches speaking, and this is when the Banquo and Macbeth come across the witches themselves. So Banquo and Macbeth have just left the battle. The witches tell Macbeth that he is going to be king, he's going to be Thane of Cawdor, all that kind of stuff. Then they speak directly to Banquo, and they say this quote, "Lesser than Macbeth, but greater. Not so happy, yet much happier. Thou shalt get kings, though thou be none." So there are a couple of paradoxes here. I want you to choose one of them for your analysis and then go through A, B, C, or D. So you can choose this one, or this one. Go through A, B, C, and D. In step C, you should be speaking specifically about Banquo's character, and whatever theme you can come up with is fine. You don't have to choose the theme that I have here, and in fact, it might not apply. So do that. We'll talk through what you have here for example 2 on Monday, and we'll also talk about this picture. We'll have a little quiz to make sure that you watch the video, and then we will do some more analysis. Okay, goodbye.